Hey, my name is Andy Jarvis, and I would like to welcome you to episode 2 of the Strategy Sessions. This episode is called P&G Tips. Why does it have such an awful name? Well, Dan Rubel, who we're going to interview as the main part of today's show, is ex-P&G. He's ex-Procter and Gamble, so I work with P&G Tips. Yes, I know it's terrible, but please, as you tune in, hopefully every fortnight, you'll get used to these really, really terrible puns. Dan is currently Customer Communications and Brand Director at Dixons Carphone Warehouse, the UK's biggest elect retailer. If you're listening from the States, that's like Best Buy, just a big brand here. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about agencies and coming out of COVID-19. And then we've got Gil David from one of the best Facebook ad agencies in Ireland, who's going to talk to you, obviously, about Facebook ads and vertical scaling. So let's get straight into it. Here's Dan Rubel in a chat I had with him last week. Off we go. Today, I'd like to welcome Dan Rubel, the Customer Communications and Brand Director from Dixons Carphone, to the Strategy Sessions. Dan, welcome.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. You seem to be sat outside in a lovely back garden there on a day off today. Everything going okay for you?
Everything's wonderful. The sun is shining. We're both wearing quite dodgy hats. Very proud of mine.
I think there's a thing that happens to men of a certain age that you suddenly want to start wearing a baseball cap. Mine is purely to cover up a bald spot, but that's we don't talk about that too much.
No, you're looking wonderful, Andy. You're looking wonderful.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, look, before this gets too creepy for everybody, let's dive straight in with, I want to talk about your career, lessons you've learned throughout that career, and how that can apply to people more widely. We'll kind of unpick some of the jobs apart, but I want to start with your current job, Customer Communications and Brand Director at Dixons Carphone. That's a big title. What does it mean?
In effect, it means communicating to customers why we're special. And, everything we do in my department pivots off that, finding the reasons why we're special and making sure that we're communicating them effectively to customers. Some of that's quite short term. Some of it, especially in retail, is about a special deal or a new launch. And then some of it's more long-term in nature. Some of it's more getting to the heart of what makes us as a retailer special today, tomorrow, and for many months and years to come. And in my mind, it's kind of what marketing is all about. Specifically underneath me, there's that manifests itself as advertising, PR, social, CRM, and also all the kind of cool, innovative ways that we engage customers in store. So, whatever the touch point, communicate to customers and make sure they understand why we're special.
Okay, and give us a feel for the brands that Dixons Carphone manage and the size of the operation as well, because by UK standards at least, it's a monster of a company.
It is. So it actually trades across a number of countries, including the Nordics and Greece. But my focus is on the UK and Ireland, which is the bulk of the business. And the two biggest brands that we have, two most well-known brands that we have in the UK and Ireland, is Currys PC World and Carphone Warehouse, which are two brands that have been around for a long time, have a massive customer base. In Currys PC World, we're the number one electrical retailer in the UK. And with Carphone, we continue to play a really important role in customers' lives, which is helping them pull a switcheroo and save some money across all the big networks and handsets. I sound like a walking, talking advert, don't I?
Yeah, I was going to say, to quote the brand campaign, pull a switcheroo. I'm disappointed you didn't try it in an Australian accent, Dan. That's fine. And in terms of, I'm not sure how you quote customer numbers or the size of the company and turnover and things. It's a public company, so I don't think there's any harm in discussing the turnover figures, but it's a 10, 12 billion pound company.
Yeah, it's a 10 billion pound company. And as I say, the UK's market leader. So if there's anybody in the US listening, then it's the Best Buy equivalent of the UK in effect. Mm-hmm. And therefore a big old company, but also a company that is really, really focused on transformation. There's some large major companies like that where, in effect, their strategy is to continue to surf on the crest of their wave and to toddle along. And the really great thing about Dixons Carphone, and to be honest with you, the reason that I joined was because there's a hunger, a desire, and a real will to transform. In recognition of the world of retail is transforming, and if we don't transforming, we won't thrive in the way that we want to thrive. And therefore, put simply, you get to work on loads of cool transformational things that are exciting for us as a team, and in the end, are exciting for the customers too.
And in terms of transformation, just from a branding perspective, I can only imagine that some of the discussions that go on or come up every now and again in relation to Carphone Warehouse, which was, when it launched in the era of Carphones, quite an innovative company. Now, nobody has a Carphone, you just have a mobile phone, a handset. How many times has the discussion of should we rename Carphone Warehouse crossed your desk in the time you've been there, or has it just been put to bed entirely?
People always like to talk about names of brands, especially brands that have been around for a while. But what we're really focused on is making sure we bring to life, to say, what's special about the brand. Changing the name of a brand is a big old deal. You can, no matter what wonderful name you come up with, it takes a long, long time to get the kind of recognition and thoughts and feelings that we have associated with all of our brands. And so, our focus is bring these brands to life and make sure that, despite the fact that as you say, the people don't have car phones no more, the brand remains super relevant, and the role that the brand plays in people's lives remains super relevant, as it obviously does, because I don't know whether you've tried to shop around for a mobile phone on your own, online or physically, but it's mega complicated. There's so many options, there's so many handsets, there's so many data deals, there's so many networks. You cross those over with a myriad of other things, and it's hard to navigate. And the role we play is making that easy with both our website and our expert colleagues that can help people navigate that.
And I would, at this stage, say that this isn't an advertisement for ID Mobile, your own network, but when I did the last shopping around for my daughter's deal, it was ID that I landed on, so I can confirm great value.
Oh, my word, you're even more wonderful now than you were at the beginning.
So flipping to the other side of the business then, the Currys PC World side, as the sort of the market leader in the UK, you've got high street stores, you've got stores in not strange places, but high streets, shopping centres, as well as a massive online proposition as well. How do you manage that whole customer touch point and customer experience across such diverse ranges of places and across the people as well? Because the people make a huge difference. When someone comes into a store, their experience of the brand is the experience of the person they meet, who might just be a Saturday or Sunday member of staff.
So it's a great question. For me, again, I sound a little bit like a broken record, but the key is to keep focusing on what makes you special. And we have a vision statement internally that we use to keep us focused, which is we help everyone enjoy amazing technology. That is what we're about every day of the week. And then, if you look at how that manifests itself both in store and online, it manifests itself in real physical ways. So, for example, in store, going into a Currys PC World store is a unique way of talking to somebody who really knows what they're talking about, helping them navigate you through the myriad of options that often exist, whether you're buying a TV or some speakers or a laptop or a washing machine. It's not something we're all buying every day. It's not something we're all experts at, and it's really nice to speak to somebody about it, and to touch and feel and play with that tech before you buy it. Whether you end up buying it in store or online, we don't really mind, but being able to touch and feel it first before, often you're spending a lot of money on these items, we find is a real value to customers, and it's one of the reasons why we're the market leader. Then on the flip side, in online, we're also innovating, pivoting off that same vision statement and that same secret sauce. So, for example, but very, very recently, we launched our Shop Live service, which means that customers can come online. A lot of people have web chat, but our version of this is that a real life colleague will pop up on the screen visually, and will interact with the customer and bring that kind of colleague expertise to life in the same way as we do in our stores, but online. And even in this challenging time of isolation, our colleagues are doing that from homes, and it's a really, we're finding in these early days, it's a really both innovative and well-liked service that I'd imagine will continue to scale up. So yeah, keeping oneself focused on one secret sauce is what it's all about, because in business and in retail, there's there's just so much you can do. The list of ideas that you can go after, the list of things you can go and innovate and spread your limited people and money on is endless. And so focus is what it's all about.
So there's two different ways I want to take it now, and I want to mention them both so I don't forget. I want to talk a little bit more about focus, but before we do, I just want to go back and talk about pricing across, because you've got a high street store network as well as online retail, and obviously the chances of price matching online, it's a bit easier. Perhaps the cost of the cost of selling a product online via a warehouse and shipping to the door, maybe a little bit cheaper than via the high street store where you've got rates, staff costs and things like that. So how do you look at pricing? Do you take a company-wide approach? Do you change pricing online versus in store? How do you look at that as an organization?
Well, but pricing for us is just the basic. If we're not keen on price, then quite simply, whether it's online or in store, customers won't prefer you, and that's why we have a price promise. We have a very clear price promise that enables us to promise to customers that we'll match prices that they might find elsewhere if by chance we're not on the money, and that kind of shows our confidence that the things you can buy from us really are on the money. People talk about the difference between online and stores, and some even talk about, well, what should one have or should retailers have different pricing? Customers won't stand for that. If a customer sees a business offering a price in one place and a different price in another for not seemingly obvious reasons or reasonable reasons, then those sorts of brands in this sort of environment get punished. And also remember, there is no such thing as a store customer looking at price and an online customer looking at price. There's a customer, and I don't know. Pre-lockdown, as you spend time in stores, whether it be ours or other people's, especially on these kind of retailers where you're selling things that are quite expensive, how many people have got their phones out? How many people are looking at their phones as they're browsing? Similarly, how many people who are buying online have previously been in a store to have a look and browse on these kind of categories? It's a lot, and therefore, much like Alibaba and others, our mindset isn't one of these two channels are different with two different sets of customers. There's one customer, and we need to delight them however they choose to shop.
Brilliant. I love the simplicity and the focus of that. It's quite a busy business, lots of different customers wanting lots of different things, but keep that simplicity and focus on it. I really like that. Which actually handily brings us back to focus. How do you personally manage those challenges of, you're multi-billion-pound business, there's lots coming across your desk, you must have hundreds of thousands, millions of customers. How do you decide what's going to be your focus? What do you do personally to help you stay on top of that?
Well, it starts with the business having a clear strategy, a clear vision, and a clear strategic intent. And thankfully, the marketeers are a part of creating that, and thankfully we have that. And then as a marketing function, one pivots off it, and one says, well, if we're here to help communicate and engage customers in a two-way conversation to bring to life the things that others are working on to make the actual experience special, whether that be on range or on ways to spread the cost or on ways to protect your products or on the products themselves, whatever they may be. Our job is to stay close, stay connected to all of that myriad of activity, and work out how and where we say what to who. And in today's world, we're a long way away from the old world of one big old blanket message to every customer. We have much more sophisticated ways of targeting customers, of personalizing our communication with customers, and thereby, our approach is to make sure that the right customers get the right message just in the right moment. Supplement that kind of heavily personalized approach with the reality of retail, which is we pivot around news. When it's the World Cup time, a lot of people want to buy tellies, so you'll see us talking fairly mainstream about tellies. When it's time to go back to school, a lot of people are wanting to buy laptops, so you'll see us talking fairly mainstream like that. But again, for me, the absolute critical part of it is whatever you're talking about, whether you're talking about a deal this week that won't be there next week, or whether you're talking about a fundamental thing that your business and your brand does, it all has to pivot back to what makes you special. It all has to link back into that. And happily, if you look a couple of years ago, we were a bit disparate in that sense. Over the last couple of years, I think we've got far more focused, and that's had a really positive impact for us.
Yeah. And how do you, obviously, you'd love to take all the credit for everything brilliant that comes out of your department, but I'm sure
Absolutely.
I'm sure part of that comes from being surrounded by great people as well. What is it you look for when you're recruiting for people in your team? What are the sort of the skills or the character traits that you try to bring into your team to help the department fly?
Nah, it's all about me, actually. No, I'm joking. It is all about the team. You know, the more time that I've had in this industry, and the more I've climbed in business and in marketing, the more you realise that it's not just important to have the right team; it's what it all is about. I remember when I used to work at Procter and Gamble, we said, you know, even if you got rid of all of our brands and you burned down all of our factories and you got rid of all of our physical assets, as long as you leave us with our people, we can get the share price, we can get the business back up to where it was within a few years. Importantly, we can get the customer offer back to where it was within a few years. And that's kind of lived with me since that time with that company. And so, you know, for me, it is all about the people. In terms of answering your question on how and what kind of profile does one try and bring in, first and foremost, you're trying to bring in some people with strong leadership. So that's both thinking leadership and people leadership skills. When I say thinking leadership, I mean people that want to change the game and know how to influence other people to change the game.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if you're working in a business where really you're just toddling along, that skill becomes a little less important. For a business that wants to transform, you need that skill. And then there's people leadership, whereby, you know, we're looking for people that know how to run teams, that know how to envision, energize, engage those teams, help those teams execute with absolute excellence. And that is, those two together under the banner of leadership is such a important skill set. And the second one I'd say is collaboration. You know, in the end, we can't deliver anything unless we work together. You know, all the most important things we as a marketing department have done, we've done with strong collaboration from other functions, and they wouldn't have happened without strong work from other functions. And therefore, if you don't know how to build relationships, if you can't recognize that having a great relationship with your peers, and well, it doesn't really matter about level, with the people that work in the other functions, is key to your success. You can't succeed in these big complicated businesses. It's, you know, gone are the times when you've just got your little island and you've got your little levers and you can be magnificent on your own. It just doesn't work like that.
Yep.
And so collaboration. And then finally, values. You know, we have some clear kind of company values, and you know, the ethics of people and the personality of people and the I suppose ethical caliber of people is just so important. You know, we spend a lot of time with each other. You want to work with people that have good values, and you don't want to create, you know, clones of each other, but you do want people to have the right set of values, and that's just a mandate. You know, it's the base upon which you can then start to think about leadership skills and collaboration skills and others. So yeah, it's all about the people.
Brilliant. And before you were at Dixons Carphone, you spent a little bit of time running your own consultancy as well, where you know, you were lucky enough to work with me during that time. Or was it the other way around? Maybe we'll stick with that one. What did you learn about yourself and about marketing on a wider basis from that time working, you know, because it's a very different change to some of the other jobs we've had. We're going to talk about their, you know, Shop Direct Group, P&G, as you've already mentioned, to go into work on your own. What did you learn, A, about yourself, and B, about marketing during that time?
Well, I think about myself, I learned that I missed running a big team. You know, and I always knew that I valued being part of and leading a team of people. But in my short time consulting, I was initially working as a one-man band, and then later creating a network of extremely talented individuals such as yourself.
That was after I'd worked with you, wasn't
it? But it wasn't the same. You know, it was working in spurts, working in partnership. It wasn't working for a long period of time as a team, trying to deliver whatever it might be big right through to the end. And maybe stupidly, I hadn't really grasped how much I valued that, and how much that dynamic motivates me. Also on the learning side, I was lucky enough to work with some great companies during that time, and to hopefully offer them some nice help. And I learned a lot about some industries that I didn't know about. I learned a lot about some kind of customers and some kind of mindsets that I didn't know about. And then finally, the model there was one that I took really from some experience in my previous role in a pure play retailer, which was consultancy, both marketing and strategy and people consultancy, according to a sprint model. So rather than a 3 to 6 month piece of consultancy, which most people are familiar with as a model, working with either large or small consultants, we worked on 20-day sprints. We worked on very narrowly defined, intense business or marketing topics. And when I started that, I'd never seen that in a consultancy. I didn't know it would work as a consultancy, but I knew it had worked within a larger company for myself. And happily it did. And it yielded good results. And was it not for Dixons Carphone coming along with a really really exciting transformation, and I'm a sucker for a transformation. I think I'd still be doing that now. Those are probably the three big learnings. Oh yeah, and also driving. I was driving so much.
One of the things nobody tells you about consulting is the travel. It's like, oh, the travel. You're just everywhere.
Yes. But wasn't great for the waistline. A few too many McDonald's there. Yeah,
absolutely. I do remember one particular morning living the dream with my third McDonald's breakfast of the week and a second coffee before 8 o'clock. It's always a good time. But so rolling back from there again a little bit further, you worked at Shop Direct Group, which people may be familiar with as the Littlewoods brand or Very, and there's something you did quite a bit there, but the main bit I want to talk about is the move from the catalog business into being sort of pure play online retail business. And a lot of companies I talk to maybe still have some sort of physical brochure. Events marketers are still tied up on physical brochures. And there's this whole, if we get rid of them, what if nobody comes? Or what if sales stop? You obviously had that challenge on a national scale. So how did you approach that? What were the discussions and the thoughts that, the information that you can share with us anyway?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, just for a bit of context, when I joined Shop Direct, which was in 2010, the business was a loss-making business. It was a very old-fashioned business. It was a catalog business in an environment where many catalog businesses were ceasing to exist. It had a website, but not really a digital ethic in the company. I remember my first day there, I saw lots of people wandering around with large boards. What are these big white boards? And their catalog pages all stuck to a board. And they weren't even talking about the catalog. They were talking about range planning, but they were using the catalog as a way of talking about the range that they were building for the next season.
And this was 1952, was it, when you joined?
Yeah, almost. Yeah,
Right.
2010. And again, the reason I joined though was that the people in charge at that time were looking for a classically trained marketer, which I'd been at Procter and Gamble for 10 years, so I kind of ticked that box. But B, wanted to transform, and then recognized even in 2010 that obviously the future wasn't going to be catalog. They needed to transform their digital experience, and I think at the time the mindset was and reduce the reliance on the catalog. I think at the time that the dream of not even having a catalog was quite far away, because the whole business pivoted off it and customers pivoted off it, given that there was pretty much no stores to speak of. And so we went about doing two things really. One was improving the digital experience. So just organically, you're making it more and more desirable for customers to go online, especially in a world where the range was always changing. The catalog was immediately out of date the moment it landed on the doorstep. And so our focus was make that digital experience better, which I was a small part of, but not wasn't really my gig, and some other directors and teams did some amazing work there to transform that digital experience. And then separately, the key to really having the confidence to in the end lose the catalogue was data, and was testing, and was having quite an advanced way of measuring the true incrementality of that catalogue, which still today many catalogue businesses or businesses with catalogues don't have, and thereby we were able to innovate that process so that we could really clearly see incrementality measured through holdout groups, and not just general incrementality, but incrementality amongst different segments of customers, and therefore we were able to prove that 6 months upon 6 months the catalogue was becoming less and less used by customers, even if it was landing on a doorstep. And eventually there's a tipping point whereby the number of customers that are really being helped by that thing becomes so small, and the commercials of printing that £5 a pop massive old book becomes so small, or becomes so on the edge of profitability that you have the confidence to pull away. And we started by pulling away the mid-season book, what we used to call it, so the catalogue that arrived in between the two big catalogues, which was half the size, with hopefully slightly more seasonally relevant products in it. And under my tenure, I took the call to not send that, and that was scary. If the business would have taken a turn that was unexpected, that would have been let's say quite a career-limiting moment. But happily, it didn't. We had a good few months in that period, and then soon after we were able to remove the catalogue entirely, which was a big moment. Culturally, it was a massive moment. We became a pure play overnight. We'd already become so much better in pure play that we had the confidence to grow from there, and the culture was already transforming at that point, but just rapidly transformed. And for example, when I left there, we had an in-house UX lab. We had people in multiple departments thinking and talking and making decisions in a digital way rather than the old-fashioned ways. We were embracing all sorts of new ways of working. I'm not saying agile. I say agile-ish because kind of the agile police come in and say that it's not quite agile, but certainly embracing more agile principles to move faster, make better decisions, make stuff happen quicker, and make the business move more and make customers happier quicker. And so that was a real roller coaster, and it was brilliant being part of that transformation. And that business still is on a transformation today. And we're on a similar kind of transformation journey in Dixons Carphone, which is exciting.
As we sort of get into the last lap of the interview, I want to go right back to the beginning of your career. You've mentioned it a couple of times, and Procter and Gamble, and I could do maybe a second podcast just on your Procter and Gamble experiences. But the two things I want to dive into are the training element and to me, still Procter and Gamble marketers and Unilever marketers are probably the gold standard of the marketing world. So I want to talk a little bit about the training and the development and how teams were put together and that sort of multifunctional element. And then I want to talk a little bit about some of the brands you worked on and just about some of the campaigns and the way they interacted with the customers as well. So let's start talking about training initially. You worked in sort of cross-functional teams effectively at Procter and Gamble. Would that be right?
Yeah, always cross-functional teams. And marketing as a function actually in Procter and Gamble at that time, and I think it's pretty similar now, wasn't like marketing functions in other companies. Marketing was very much a more general management type role, grasping hold of the pure marketing levers, but also often leading multifunctional teams to run an end-to-end business. And so for example, very, very, very early in my career, I found myself as a 21-year-old running multifunctional teams to deliver end-to-end initiatives. So, for example, on Pantene as an assistant brand manager, I launched Pantene Winter Rescue, which was a special formula just for winter hair problems. Fox, I think, in the background there, and that was a big old marketing campaign, but it was also leading a group that included product supply, finance, design, sales, so the guys and girls that reach out to retailers to get the products on the shelves. And for that period, all of that group were my team. Some of them more junior than me, some of them more senior than me, but they were my team to run. And we as a group were there to land a brilliant end-to-end customer experience and a hopefully a brilliant commercial outcome, which thankfully it was both. And so very early on, it establishes in all of its new people that ethic of multifunctionalism, if that's a word, and of the need to not be a purist marketer, but to be a business person with a customer and marketing bent to make big commercial things happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's a lot of internal competition at Procter and Gamble. Again, is that right? With the sort of lots of different products within the same categories and things like that. Does that cause you to sort of really focus hard? Does that cause you to look internally too much, or is that focus always on the customer?
It is. Let me talk a bit about that competitive spirit for a minute, and then I'll square that off versus the customer. A sort of mentor of mine in Procter and Gamble, I won't name him just in case he wouldn't want to be associated with a quote, and he still works there, a great guy. He once said to me over a drink, there's a profile that P&G hires, and this profile actually, he believed, and he was involved in the creation of it, the initial questions in a P&G interview, which is obviously multiple choice questions, kind of a psychographic type thing, he believes that those questions in effect seek this profile. And then obviously you go through a normal interview process. But the profile, as he defined it, was insecure, overachieving geek, which I quite liked. And I quite saw myself in the mirror, insecure in that P&G at that time was a meritocracy. And therefore, what you saw with a lot of P&G people was they prefer kind of the praise from the people they respect, and they prefer to develop themselves in their career than to get a pay rise or to get a different title deep down. And they kind of almost craved that assurance from people that they respect that they were on the right track. Which I can see a little bit of that in my younger self. And then the overachieving thing is the competitive thing. So when I started with P&G, I was in Switzerland, in Geneva, and a load of 21-year-olds basically straight out of university found themselves in a European city, and so often we'd go out for weekends or we'd go on adventures together, and you'd see these 10, let's say there's 10 of you, 10 guys and girls all trying to lead the group. Oh, we shall go here. No, we shall go there. All trying to make their mark, and there is this kind of overachieving ethic that it's not trained. It's part of just the culture of the company and the profile of the kind of people that they bring in, always relentlessly kind of dissatisfied with whatever the status quo is. And then the geek side, in the end, numbers are important, and the common thing you see in P&G people is deep down they kind of like numbers. They kind of get a weird little thrill when a spreadsheet adds up. And the kind of marketeers and business people that kind of deep down don't like numbers and kind of do it because they know they need to do it. You don't really see that in many P&G people, in my opinion. So I thought that was a nice little profile of P&G people. And then it's a good question. Given that profile, doesn't that create some kind of awful culture whereby everyone's dog eat dog and desperately competing against each other? It doesn't, and I think it doesn't for two reasons. One is P&G have managed to establish a real customer culture, and the customer and the customer outcomes that we were delivering, and the company still delivers today, and making sure that the customer, who is the boss in the end, is ever more satisfied, and their lives are ever improved by the things that P&G were putting out, was always front and center of every conversation. It also helped that P&G have really clear competitors to go against. There's at a corporate level there was Unilever, or at a brand level, Pantene and LV going head to head, and so it's nice to have when you've got an external protagonist to compete against, you find yourselves teaming up to compete against them. And then finally, the general culture and ethic of the place. Again, P&G, I think, recruited an ambitious and a competitive profile, but also people that weren't ruthless and weren't or the kind of ruthlessness that means that they sell people under the bus or throw people under the bus. I didn't see that kind of behaviour even very early on amongst the young guys and girls that joined. It just, those kind of people just weren't there, and I've got to think that again, that's a big part of the recruitment process that makes sure you get the right type of competitiveness.
Okay. To jump back to what you said about the numbers, that's interesting. I see in my daily life a lot of marketers who are more interested in the aesthetic and the pretty picture element of marketing than the commerciality of it and what will this do for the business. Is that something you see currently or have seen throughout your career once you left P&G?
Yeah. I think, listen, there's a role for people who are not numbers based in the world of marketing. If you think about some of the finest creatives that I know in either our company within our in-house creative team or in agency teams, maybe some of them are good at numbers, maybe not, but the ability to really, really be under the skin of a business and its numbers and the analytics of decisions, it isn't as critical for those roles. And I think there are, for those kind of roles, one is almost permitted not to be too numbers based. But if you want to be a marketeer in a business that runs marketing, that runs where the money gets spent, that decides what messages to say and what messages not to say, that tries to optimize the places that the money is spent in a way that creates the best business outcomes and customer outcomes, then you better be into numbers, because it's part of the game. And it's not the only part of the game. If all you know is numbers and you don't have a strong bent towards the customer, you don't have a skill set and a desire to see the right kind of creative that really resonates with customers, and you don't have kind of the leaning towards a little bit of marketing fluffery, then you'll also struggle. But you need the numbers. And if I think about the most successful people that I know in marketing, they've had a bit of both.
Mm-hmm. A little bit of everything. And so when you're training at P&G, you joined as a graduate, 21, just out of university. What sticks in your mind from the training that you received, sort of in-house training, or was there external training? What do you remember from those days?
Well, a few things. One is, again, an ethic that flowed through the company, which was throw people in the deep end. Not so they'll drown and not recover, but definitely throw people in the deep end. I remember my first day. It was supposed to be in Geneva in Switzerland. And I think the day before, my new boss, who obviously had not met physically yet, said, Dan, yes, don't come to Geneva on Monday. Maybe come to Frankfurt instead. So, okay, Frankfurt. I'd never really been anywhere really in Europe at that time. So, okay, Frankfurt, it's in Germany, great. Okay, yeah, I'll come to Frankfurt. What's going on? Well, we have an advertising meeting, a PPM. Never heard of a PPM, but as I learned later, it turns out it's the last big meeting before an advert is made, the post-production meeting. And so it's where you're kind of locking down the final script, the final storyboard, the final shooting board, all the final details before the agency go away and shoot a wonderful ad. So he said, you're going to PPM. I'll send you all the stuff, and you just need to kind of make sure everything's okay and sign it off. I'm like, okay, sign it off, great. And who else will be there? Oh, no one, just you and the agency. So I was like, okay, that's cool. So off I fly to Frankfurt. I remember it was Leo Burnett's in the Frankfurt office. At the time, Leo Burnett's had a deal with a tobacco company, which meant that in every room there was a pyramid of cigarettes on the table. And so I walked into this smoke-filled room.
Again, is this 1952?
Hey, it was 2000. It's unbelievable, but it was 2000. And so anyway, the ethic of throwing people in the deep end, making them from day one a little mini managing director actually of their little area, was at the heart of their training ethic and the heart of the way that people there rapidly develop. And I have a similar ethic now in my team as we bring more junior people in. I think the second thing is a coaching culture. In P&G, it wasn't some mega HR function which created all the coaching and all the training. It was it was everybody. It was the leaders. It was the business leaders. It was the marketeers. It was the sales guys. It was the finance guys. It was the whole company, which all the leaders, all the people that have been around a bit, pulled their weight in creating a coaching culture. Not just one whereby you coaching the people that are in your team, but one whereby you create learning opportunities across the business. And indeed, P&G formalized that. So in the period that I worked there, not sure to be honest if it's still the same, but in the period that I worked there, everybody got rated right up to the very top. Everyone got a rating, and that kind of determined your progression and to some extent your remuneration. And unlike, I think pretty much any company I know, might be some others, but none that I know of, you actually got 2 ratings. One was on the business, so to what extent had you been amazing, mediocre, or not so good on delivering great things for the business and for the customer, and that tended to pivot off your behaviors, the things you delivered, the numbers you'd made happen, the impact you'd have. And then a second rating on people. So that meant the role you played in coaching people, in recruitment, in anything people related that builds the organization. It might be to do with getting everyone going on a charity drive or whatever. It might be to do with culture. And that's right from the beginning. As a 21-year-old new start, my first rating included those 2 things. And for me, I wasn't coaching people at that point, but I was heavily involved in graduate recruitment, and that was my bit of people. Now, here's the most important thing: your rating is the lowest of those 2. So there were plenty of people who were magnificent on the business, top rating, changed the world, amazing, but mediocre on the people. They got a mediocre rating. They got a mediocre kind of progress through the company. They got a mediocre remuneration as a result of that, which matters. It immediately implants in people's minds that this company cares deeply about developing people and developing the organization, and it gives people a very tangible reason to not forget that, which you can in the firefight. You can have all the right intent, but in the firefight of business, you can, months can go by and you haven't really thought enough about people. Well, when you kind of cement it into the rating system, that forgetfulness tends to happen a little bit less.
Yeah. Brilliant stuff. Brilliant. There was something, because we could go on forever, but there's one more question I want to ask you about your P&G days, and that's about, it kind of spins off what you said about having to sign off in the PPM meeting. Advertising of sort of hair care products, or maybe it was all the FMCG products that you were involved with. There was 2 elements that you were looking for, I think you've told me before, in an ad. Is that right? There was a kind of an emotional and a rational element to it. I think you described hair as having to be yummy at one point. Although maybe not your word. Just talk to us a little bit about those sort of advertising lessons that you learned back then, because I think they're relevant to everybody, no matter what stream of marketing you work in. If you're doing advertising, I think those lessons are good.
I think you're right. So the way that I look at advertising, and 80% of what I'm about to say is rooted in what I learned at P&G, but some in the era that's gone beyond. It all pivots off having a clear and compelling message at the heart, which isn't the job of the agency. The agency can help, but that's the job of a marketeer and a brand person. Whatever piece of communication you're trying to build, what are you trying to get across here? If it's 5 things, forget about it. It doesn't matter how good those 5 things are. You're not going to cut through the clutter that is the communicational landscape, trying to squeeze in 5 different facets. If it's not very interesting, then you're probably onto a loser. If it's I don't know, hi, we're a car brand and we've got 4 wheels. Well, that's not gonna impress anybody. So working with the people that run the actual customer experience or build the actual product or whatever you're in, and getting to the bottom of what's special, what's interesting, what's the benefit, the consumer benefit of the thing you're offering, and why should the customer believe in that benefit, and making sure that central message is interesting, not predictable, is the first step. And then you go to the next step, which is executing that and creating communication that isn't dry, that isn't just that on wheels, but talks to customers. And I always say talks to the customers here and here in the heart. In the mind, you want messaging, you want creative and messaging that is mind opening, that helps people, that makes people think differently, that might make them curious, that might make them interested, that might make them might resonate in a way in their heads that makes them think, well, I didn't know that. Surprising. So you want to make them think differently as a result of your communication, and stroke or, and ideally, the two things go hand in hand. Sometimes it's just the heart. You want to make them feel differently, and this is the bit where marketeers get themselves into trouble, because we know, and most really good business people know, that appealing to customers' hearts and winning a place in their heart, winning some emotional connection between you and the brand, or between the brand and the customer, it is valuable. It's valuable for the customer, and it also creates unreasonable loyalty and trial, and therefore, you want to see advertising that talks there too, and that again cuts through the clutter, that is inventive in some way, that is surprising in some way. And then finally, those two things need to be united by some kind of big idea, some kind of transformation of that benefit into a big thought. Because a lot of research over time has shown that if you've got a big idea, a really interesting big idea, then both as a one-off and over time for a campaign, it resonates. And as long as it's rooted in the real message you're trying to get across and not something tangential, you imprint whatever you're trying to say onto people's heads better. And if you imprint it into people's minds and hearts better, you create the impact that you want. Finally, I think there's a certain, especially when you're on the client side, i.e. you're often not the one creating the final execution. You're working with others to create it. There's one of the most important skills I think marketeers need is relentlessness. One of the most important things they can do is not buy the work that isn't meeting the standards that they have. And part of that is being organized, making sure you don't back yourself into a timing corner that means that you have to buy the work that you don't really want. And part of that is just sticking true to your ambitions and not settling, and going through the personal pain or team pain and the agency pain of going again when it might be a bit more convenient not to go again. And for me, if one can combine all of those things and then some of the fundamentals of brand recognition and the like, then you can make something really special.
So where do you start? I think that's some really great lessons there for people, those different elements that you need to try and get into a campaign. And I think when you see bad advertising, you often see one of those, and it's usually the feature of a product. Car has 4 wheels, buy now. Right, okay. And that's where I think a lot of it falls down.
No problem.
Last couple of questions, and I hesitate to call them quick-fire questions, but I'm going to throw them at you in a fairly quick-fire way. People always want to know, what do you read? How do you stay on top of what's happening in marketing at the minute? You said you're a classically trained marketer. Where do you go when you need to find out more about the industry?
Do you know what? To find out more about the industry, Twitter, LinkedIn. The world of marketing, and indeed the whole world, is so fast moving these days that by the time any book's out, it's become outdated. Probably the fundamentals of marketing and business, even from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, isn't outdated. But for what's hot, for the hottest trends, for the most relevant case studies, for what's on people's minds, then I do find Twitter and LinkedIn gives me access to all sorts, to a myriad of information and inspiration. I'm a bit of a voyeur there, though. I'm not really posting enough, so I'm going to try and change my ways and take a more active role in the conversation. And then, book-wise and fundamentals-wise, the book From Good to Great by Jim Collins. Jim Collins, that's right. Jim Collins, yeah. Is one of my favourites, and and I'd recommend it for any marketeer for 2 reasons. One, it's not a marketing book, which is important, because for marketeers to be great, it's often not about marketing, it's about business, and it's about connecting the dots between what people characterise as pure marketing and real commercial outcomes and commercial conversations. So, it helps. I think by reading a book like that, it helps you become a more active and impactful part of a multifunctional business team on strategic and commercial topics. And secondly, the book's all about what separates great, high-performing companies with fantastically evolving share prices and therefore value from good ones. And a lot of people write these marketing books off their wisdom. I am wise. I have existed on this planet for many years. I've experienced what I experienced, and let me dazzle you with my wisdom and a few case studies that seem to back up my wisdom. This book is rooted in numbers, and maybe this is the geek in me, but every hypothesis and every principle that is shared in the book, I hope it's I think it's every one, is rooted by analytics of the behaviors, the actions, the strategies that highly successful, rapidly growing and rapidly building that success companies took versus the ones that carried on their lethargy in the world of mediocrity, both in terms of their share and their company performance, and therefore it carries more weight for me. And certainly in my experience, those principles have had a good impact on my impact on the businesses that I've worked in.
I mean, both Jim Collins' books that I've read, Good to Great, and the previous one, Built to Last, was stunning, and I used to say based on research, and then kind of tease that research out into lessons you can take. I'll post links to both those books in the show notes, which you can get below. I fell about laughing when you said about the wise people writing books based on their wisdom, because it felt like you were just holding a mirror up to me there going, Jarvis, there's a book you're writing at the minute, isn't there, which is just based on your wisdom and knowledge. So I'll maybe see if I can get some research to add into that to give it a bit more bang.
Stick a few numbers in there. You'll be all right.
Brilliant. So then, final question then, Dan. Is there anything that you're expecting me to ask you today that I didn't ask?
I was expecting you to ask maybe what's my favourite campaign out there.
Mm-hmm. Give us two answers to that. What's your favourite campaign, and what's your favourite campaign that you've worked on?
Oh, you've taken my question and raised it. My favourite campaign. I'll tell you what it was almost. It was almost Walmart's. It's in the US, but almost Walmart's campaign about their new drive-through shopping option, which once our stores open, Currys PC World will be offering too. But they've got a lovely execution, actually, not a campaign, which sees all sorts of classic 80s vehicles rolling into the drive-through, which from memory included the Ghostbusters ambulance.
Ambulance.
I think it included the Kit, who for those who don't know is the black Trans Am that is Michael Knight's car.
The car of my childhood.
Knight Rider. I think it included the Scooby-Doo gang's van, and even had the sound of in it. So, I don't know who their target market is, but I think it might be Dan Rubel, because that very much resonated with me. But that was second. The first one, there's a campaign out at the moment, I think by TWA, which is for a brand called Hun. I hope it's called Hun, which is, you like this, Andi, it's wine in a can.
Classic.
And they've done, I think, some really good creative work whereby, obviously they're new kids on the block. They're trying to get attention. They're trying to drive awareness to their existence, and all the more rich, what are they about, and why should you like them, kind of comes later. And they've done an outdoor campaign, which on the face of it might sound a bit strange, given that we're all kind of in our houses and not outdoor. With multiple executions, including ones where they question the validity of their advertising agency for buying an outdoor campaign. Including inventive ones with text that you can't quite read, and obviously they've generated huge amounts of PR because of that, and social buzz, which presumably was always the intent. And then they've got some more kind of traditional ads that explain the provenance of their wine, and explain the reason why this isn't the kind of the stereotype one might think of when you think of alcohol in a can, or that kind of alcohol in a can, but it's actually something a bit more premium and a bit more enjoyable.
I'll see if we can dig out links to both of them and get them in the show notes as well.
Yeah, have a look. It's really fun. I think on their Instagram they've got some good stuff. And then your second question was the one that I've been involved in.
Yeah.
I think for me, weirdly, this isn't actually my creatively the favorite ad I've ever been involved in. And it's, if people were to line them up side by side, and all the things that I've been involved in my career, it might even rank in the not in the top 20%. This one, but there was an ad when I worked on Pantene. I ran Pantene UK for a while, and Pantene UK is a super tanker. It's a mega brand in P&G terms. Cincinnati, the USA headquarters, are very, very all over what all the countries are doing, including the UK. And often you have to implement a bit of a formula. And in the UK, we were suffering. That formula wasn't working, and we needed change. We needed change both on the pricing and promotional front, which we managed to affect, and which was part of my remit. But also on the communicational front, the relentless kind of USA-based and European-based ads of women flinging their hair around wasn't working, and it's probably doing a bit of a disservice to the global campaign. But it wasn't working in the UK, and I managed to convince a very skeptical European and USA audience of that, which was easier said than done. And then we created something locally, which we were reasonably proud of, which was a lady you've heard of, Mylene Class, playing the piano and bringing to life two of the messages that we were trying to communicate about our brand, both emotional and resonant. Sorry, and in the mind. And it, I don't know whether you know, she's a classically trained pianist. She's a fantastic pianist, and it was quite a mesmerizing piece of creative. It was very different for Pantene, very, very different for Pantene at the time. And for the first time since we were reading Share, the way we were reading it at least, so for many, many years, we took a flatlining or growing or declining brand into share growth. And we saw for the first time brand metrics move, and people actually start to recall this thing rather than the wallpaper that we've been creating. And that felt good for me and for the team that did it, because it was a battle. It was a battle to make it happen. And it was the beginning of a happier time for that brand in the UK at least. You know what? And finally, we've just put an ad out on Currys PC World that I'm very, very proud of, which is an ad using footage from our colleagues and from some of the colleagues of our partners, bringing to life the important role that tech is playing in this strange and challenging time of isolation, reminding customers that we're here, even our stores are shut for now, and that we're delivering next day and delivering safely, which is a huge priority for us. And again, the early stats we've got on that, and obviously we do a little bit of testing before we air it, have been really, really positive. And I've been really blown away by the creativity and ingenuity of our colleagues who made all the footage. It's really kind of interesting and in parts funny and in parts kind of a bit emotive stuff, and the energy from colleagues to want to create that, and from the agency to want to make it, has been brilliant. And with the speed we're moving at, we made that ad from nothing, from brief to in market within a week. The previous campaign we did in 2 days, 2 working days, and across a weekend, which is unheard of. So very proud of that, and most importantly, the team that did it. It was the team that made that happen. Not really me, but the head of marketing and the fantastic agencies that we work with.
Excellent. And I'm sure your agency will be over the moon when you tell them next time they've got 2 days to make a campaign as well.
Yeah, well, they had the luxury of a week smoking cigars for the last one. So yeah, 2 days has set the bar. Fantastic.
Brilliant. Look, Dan Rubel, thank you very much for your time. It's been amazing, and we might get you back on at some point in the future to talk a little bit more about those P&G days. We'll get a nice hazy black and white filter over everything and some more cigars. But thank you very much for your time, and I hope to talk to you again.
Cheers. Thanks, Andy.
Dan, thank you very much for your time. Look, I love talking to Dan, and the time I spent working with him is one of the highlights of my career. I learned quite a lot on the project that we worked on, and it was a fantastic experience and really changed some of the ways I do things at XMO Marketing. But let's dig into some of the stuff he said there. Advertising. Yes, he was talking about TV ads, and no, not everybody does TV ads. But the bits he mentioned there, the important things, appealing to the head, appealing to the heart, emotional and rational. So many ads only have one of those two elements and miss out and fail. So have a look, look at your advertising, see if you hit both of those. Some fascinating thoughts on people from his current job about working across different teams and collaboration, from the P&G way of doing things, and setting up systems and processes so that people are measured on how they have an impact on members of the team. That's also really important. And I think probably the other thing, I mean, we could go through and pick the whole interview apart, but the other thing that I think really stood out was the issue of branding and rebranding. Carphone Warehouse. Nobody has a Carphone anymore. I think I mentioned it in the interview. Half of the listeners probably won't even know what a Carphone is. But that's not the point. The point is they keep the brand because it means something to people. And it's about asking the right question before you start rebranding. So I think that's really important. Anyway, like I said, one more time, thank you, Dan. That was a really insightful interview. Now, onwards, I'm going to talk to you about everyone's favourite subject, COVID-19.
What I want to talk to you about this episode is aimed at agencies. It's a world I know. I've worked in agencies for 8, 9, 10 years, and I work with some agencies now as well, helping them position various elements of what they do. Now, I know a lot of agencies had to furlough people, and some of them are starting to bring them back now. We're seeing some of the restrictions ease up, so people are starting to come back to work. And what my advice would be to you at the minute is to go through the strategy process again with your clients, because we've gone through a shock, unprecedented times. I mean, we can see that the word unprecedented has been searched for an unprecedented number of times on Google Trends. Unprecedented means it's without precedent. None of us have lived through a time like this before, not in the UK anyway, right? We've never seen a shutdown like this. Lots of things have changed. We see companies laying people off. We see other companies recruiting. We've seen e-commerce businesses flying. The strategy you created for that business last year, 2 years ago, hell, even 6 months ago, it's not relevant anymore. So if you are going back to work, you're putting teams of people back in, don't just think you can pick off where you left off, right? You have to stop and start again. Talk to your clients, get in touch with your clients and find out, can you go through that strategic process again? Now, some clients will say, we're not paying for that. We did that 6, 12 months ago. What I would say is, if that's the case, find a light touch way to go through that process again, because the goalposts have moved. If you can go back through that process in its full entirety and it's billable work, great, fantastic. But even if it's not billable, you need to look at doing something to get back under the skin of your clients. Because as I said, the goalposts have changed for everybody. The market's changed. Best indication is we're about to enter into a recession. That will change things as well. So everything's moved, and you really need to go through that strategic process again. If you need any help with that, get in touch. This isn't a sales pitch. Just get in touch. I'll happily talk you through any of the basics that I think you need to be looking at. But please do make sure you start again as if they're a new client. Onboard them again. Go through the strategy process again, and then you can start work. Don't just try and jump back in and think the plan you created last year will deliver for them this year.
Right, now we're into the final lap of the show and everybody's favourite part of it. It's where I start to sing. It's the top tips section. Do you remember how the theme tune goes from last time out? T-O-P-T-I-P. T-O-P-T-I-P. This week we've got Gil David from Run DMG. If you don't know Gil, I'm wearing one of his hats if you're watching the video. You don't have to send me a hat to get onto the Strategy Sessions podcast, but it does help. Gil is one of the leading Facebook ad experts in Ireland and the UK. He has a certification from Facebook that he'll tell you about on Twitter. I can't remember, but he's the only one in Ireland with it, or he was the first one in Ireland with it. One of only about 50 in the UK. He is an exceptional Facebook marketer and focuses really on their products. So Facebook ads, Instagram ads is really his bread and butter. So Gil is going to talk to you now about vertical scaling. Gil.
Hi, I'm Gil from Run DMG, and my tip today is for any business that's looking to scale their returns from Facebook ads. So if you've got an ad set that's been performing well for a few days, don't just leave it sitting there at the same budget. You've got a massive potential to scale it up, and you can go from spending hundreds of pounds a day to thousands of pounds a day, and from spending thousands of pounds a day to tens of thousands of pounds a day. So it's quite simple. It's called vertical scaling. All you do, if you've got an ad set, like I say, that you've seen some consistency in for 3 to 7 days and it's been getting you purchases at a good return, all you do is increase the budget in the morning by 20 to 30%. Give it a couple of days. If it's still holding at the same kind of returns that you're looking for, then you can increase the budget again by 20 to 30%. And that way, within about a week, you can be doubling your budget. So if you, like I say, if you've been spending a few £100 a day, you can get up to £1,000 plus. And if you're already spending a couple of £1,000 a day, you can be getting up really quickly towards up to the £10,000 a day mark. So yeah, give it a try. Vertical scaling, it's one of the best ways to really max out your returns from Facebook and get the most from the platform. So if you enjoyed that tip or you want a few more, I'm most active on Twitter at Gil, G-I-L, _RunDMG. Or if you want to speak about anything else to do with Facebook ads, send me an email, Gil, again, G-I-L, at run-dmg.com. Thanks.
Gil, thank you very much. If you are lucky enough to be watching this on the XMO Marketing YouTube channel, you'll see the darts shirt that Gil was wearing when he was recording that interview. Don't let that put you off. Some really great advice there if you're looking to scale high-performing campaigns. If you have any questions about Facebook ads and how you can improve your Facebook ads, do reach out to Gil. He's on Twitter and LinkedIn a lot and will always engage. Happy to have a conversation with you. So thank you very much for your time there, Gil. Wherever you're listening, whether you're on a streaming service or watching on YouTube, please do subscribe, hit that button and get the podcast sent to you. It's coming out every fortnight. Before I tell you who the next guest is, let me just say thank you once again to Gil for his top tip, to Dan Rubel for his time with the interview, and to Aaron Abernethy from Inside Voice for producing the podcast. If you do need a podcast producing, if you're thinking of going into podcasting, you can learn all about it yourself. You can go through all the technical bits. You can find out how to do it and what the best ways are. And after you've spent days and days and days and days, then still make a mess of it. Or you can get in touch with Aaron and he'll do most of that for you. Honestly, it's a brilliant service. So big thank you to Aaron. Right. So just before we wrap up, the next guest is going to be none other than Ran Fishkin, formerly of Moz, now of Spark Toro, author of Lost and Founder. We have a great discussion which will be out with you on Tuesday the 9th of June. So subscribe now wherever you are, wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching, and get ready for the next show because it's going to be a good one. Thank you very much for your time. If you've liked this, please do share it with your friends. If you haven't liked it, get in touch and tell me because I really would like to find out why. Thank you.